Oh, baby. Is the running game back? It certainly was for Alvin Kamara and the New Orleans Saints yesterday as the Cowboys got their asses kicked 44-19 at AT&T Stadium. And we just got some breaking news about the running game across the NFL. Isaac Pacheco heading to IR is what ESPN was saying up there, Sean?
Yep.
So Pacheco is out now.
Which
they're
IR?
gonna have to go find. They're gonna have to go find another. Nobody running back to rush for 5 yards a carry for him and cover over all manner of sins when Patrick Mahomes plays as bad as he did yesterday. So that's what you got there. All right, so we talked about, and this is Below the Belt, sponsored by Number One Air. So thank you to them. We talked last week about the idea of is the running game making a little bit of a comeback, and how passing attacks have not been nearly as prolific in some of the recent data sets as we've seen over the last 10 to 15 years. In week one, we had just 2 guys that went for 300 passing yards, and that was the fewest in a week one since 2005. So we're talking about basically a 20-year low. If you look at the TNF game and then the slate of games that have been played already, there were 3 players. There's just one Monday night game left to play. There were 3 quarterbacks that threw for over 300 yards on Sunday. So again, way down. One of those guys who threw for 300 yards was Jared Goff, who went for 304 on 55 pass attempts, which is not efficient at all. Not at all able to do that.
Ice his arm, man. Jeez.
So running has been the main avenue of success for a lot of the teams that have won early on this season. So there were 3 teams that averaged 140 yards rushing per game last season. During this week 2 slate already with 1 game left, 10 teams went for over 140 yards. Some of the numbers were like ridiculously off the charts. Chargers rushed for 219. Saints were 190. Packers got 261. Washington had 215. In fact, through 2 weeks of the season, there have been NFL teams, there have been 4 performances of 300 net pass yards or more. So one of those 300-yard passing games had a sack in there that brought their net passing yards below 300. There have been 5 games of 200 rushing yards. So teams now are starting to run at a ridiculously prolific level. We're on pace right now for 63 games of 185 rushing yards from NFL teams. Last year there were 42.
Wow.
Good. I'm happy about it. I know
It's,
it makes RJ sick, but I kind of like when you get big reversals and trends. I don't know if this is an actual trend, but the league did everything they could to screw over defenses. And really to go away from run games. And it's not good for the Cowboys because this is their weakness and has been their weakness, but the league keeping it alive for the first 2 weeks.
You have me pegged wrong here, sir. It does not make me sick. I am all about efficiency. That's all I care about.
Oh.
And if the efficiency of the running game has changed and improved, then I have no problem taking a look at that. It's still boring to me, and the only thing it'll do for me is it'll just cause me not to watch. But other than that, yeah, I'm just all about efficiency.
No, and I mean, this is where you're seeing teams. It's not just like we talked about yesterday with New Orleans. Alvin Kamara's longest run was 15 yards. It's not like he broke a 40-yarder in there, did anything else. This is teams are having a lot of success just methodically moving the ball 5, 6, 7, 8 yards at a time running the ball. Last year, it was actually the Ravens led the NFL in rushing at 156 yards per game. That was the absolute top of the level in the NFL, was 156 yards. If you look at these first couple weeks of the season, the NFL teams are going way over that consistently. There have already been 14 games of 156 rushing yards.
Maybe it's, no physicality in training camps and off season, hurting run defenses. I don't know. Discussion for another day. But it's hard to, completely judge the Cowboys' run game yesterday because they were getting their ass kicked and destroyed and embarrassed and humiliated and emasculated and all the above. But they ran for 68 total yards. Zeke had 6 for 16. Rico, I thought, got off to a decent start. He had 7 for 30. But Deuce Vaughn, I want to talk about Deuce Vaughn. 4 carries, 11 yards, 2.8 with the average. His longest run was 4 yards. Week 1 against Cleveland, 1 carry for 4 yards. You had heard Jerry Jones in an interview, Bobby, that you kind of took note of. I think it was on this station, bring up Deuce's name, and you had said, I think they might want to, they might be trying to force Deuce Vaughn involvement this year. And at no time in the regular season can I ever remember Deuce's abilities getting loose. He had the epic preseason last year. And I am just like automatically thinking when a running back doesn't break any, he's not getting any holes. But is there something to Deuce's like vision or his game? And yesterday I tweeted and I asked, is Deuce Vaughn just not good? Because he never breaks free for anything. And I got 132 comments back to me on X. Here's some of them. I think he's not suited to the league. Too small. Our offensive line also is not good enough. Leaning towards O-line, not making lanes. You can't get in a rhythm being constantly pulled after one play. That from Tolo Matthew.
That's a big one for me. There's I think the 3-headed monster is too much. They need to shrink it down to 2 because you can't get into a rhythm. Now, maybe there's no rhythm to get into because these guys' rhythm isn't any good because they're not very good as a whole. But there is 2 things. You could hit the hole. Like you could be given a hole by an offensive line, but you hit it too fast, right before it opens up, or you hit it too late.
Yeah,
because you're slow. But there is such a thing as being too quick to the line of scrimmage. I don't know if that's the case. I haven't studied it enough, but for 4 carries, that's a sample size that just isn't there.
Tolo David, he's just too small, can't break a tackle. Nice story, but just not an NFL player. Another Tolo, enough with the story. Bring up Dalvin. Dude, he's 4 foot tall. WTF do you want him to do? What are you seeing? What are you hearing, Bobby?
So I think yesterday was confusing to me. I don't know why Zeke was getting all the runs to the perimeter. Zeke was getting runs to the perimeter. The couple carries that Deuce got, everything was inside.
Yeah.
Which was a little odd to me.
Total opposite.
Yeah, they were doing some stuff on offense yesterday that I didn't I've not seen them do, and I don't know why they were. I don't know if it's just, hey, we got to figure out some way to kind of combat this and respond to what defenses are doing to us physically. I don't know if it was just some sort of change up trying to throw curveballs, but Deuce, yeah, okay, getting into a rhythm, that's important. Everything else. There was one run there, I think it was his second carry of the game, where he had a lane. And he ran into the offensive lineman blocking somebody, where it was just I don't know what he saw or why he wasn't able to jump cut quickly enough to get out, get to the hole. But he runs into the offensive lineman, gets wrapped up. His big problem has always been as soon as a defender gets hands on him, they're concerned that he's not going to be able to break that. That he's going to go down. They're not going to get any yards after contact. He's got to be in space. He's got to be. We would think it's nuts if you're handing off stuff to Turpin to then run in the interior. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And
Christopher Smith said that they're running him in the middle, not trying to get him in space. Seems like they should be doing the opposite.
They got to use him more like Turpin, like they would if he was a running back.
I think it's also important to remember he was a 6th round pick.
Yeah,
like he's a 6th round running back.
Pacheco was a 7th.
Right, yeah, but I think that you're talking about
one 7th round good player doesn't mean it applies.
Yeah,
you're a 6th and a 7th round pick for a reason,
right? But
98% of the time,
we don't see the great running backs today aren't first rounders anymore.
I know. I'm saying I think we're surprised when a 6th rounder is really good. We're not surprised when a 6th rounder isn't Isaiah Pacheco. To me that's kind of reasonable expectation. Now here's the thing: a lot of people felt like Deuce would have been a. I think talking to most evaluators, the idea was if he were 4 inches taller, he would have been a 2nd, 3rd round pick, probably. But he still had long speed questions. He was not a big long speed guy. He's an agile, joystick type of runner. And you talking about this made me remember. It's let me go reach out. I know we did a segment right after the draft last year where the segment, it had come up the question of, was Deuce Vaughn a charity pick? Did the Cowboys pick somebody who nobody else would have picked? And so I wanted to jump back and look, and I was like, I asked people outside of Dallas, what did they think of him and if it was a charity selection? And I got 3 replies back. One personnel guy said, definitely not a charity selection, change of pace back with vision, athleticism, and a solid pass catching skill. He went in the right range. Another guy said, had him in the 5th round. He's got incredible change of direction, quick mental processing, 0 fear running inside, incredibly tough. Plus pass catcher, the size limits how much you can have him on the field, though. Sometimes a bit too eager to bounce it outside instead of letting things develop in front of him. And then the most negative review said he was late day 3 for me. Had some backs I liked more that didn't get drafted. Love the elusiveness, but size and athletic limitations are just too significant for him to contribute in a meaningful way. Not for us, but went around later than I thought he would. So that last review sounds like the player we've seen.
He averaged 6 and 5.5 yards per carry his last 2 years of college. And that includes 50 catches and 40 catches in those 2 years. for 9 and 9.5 yards per reception. He was a draftable player. And if he was a charity case, that's
Which he
not
wasn't.
great. He wasn't, but he wouldn't be the first. Mike Piazza was. He went to the Hall of Fame. He was 64th round or whatever. It happens.
I think he has I'm not ready to just completely write him off. I think there's a way that he can contribute because some of the elusiveness is really impressive. He is very quick. He's very agile. You got to use him in the right way, though. Yeah. However that is, and I know Brian Schottenheimer was working on, we talked about it at the end of last season. He's like, hey, I want you to start running some routes. Work with Brandon Cooks. I want you to start learning how to contribute in doing some stuff maybe from the slot. Find different ways to use him, that's fine. But, man, the way it can't be is not, let's have Zeke with his 4.7 speed at 29 years old, run everything outside, and let's try to put Deuce on the interior. I don't know what was going on there. I think that he can be a contributor. He's never going to be a full-time back because there are just natural limitations there.
So if Dak calls the plays, is that Dak's fault for running him inside?
That's not a ha-ha thing. I said today, I think Dak is, that's why I think Dak is largely responsible for a lot of what happened yesterday. I think Dak was in control of the offense, and I don't think it was particularly good. I don't think they were in plays consistently enough that we're going to take advantage of what New Orleans had in front of him. It wasn't a good day for him, period. As somebody diagnosing things pre-snap or, in terms of some of the reads that he had. Now, I think to the point about Dak throwing the interception, there were a lot of people crushing the second interception he threw, which it was an awful throw. To me, it's 11 minutes left in the fourth. You're down 20 points. That's the time to throw that to see if you can make something happen. To me, I don't care when you're down 20 if you make a stupid throw to try and get some of it back.
Me neither.
And so some of that criticism I thought was a little bit over the top. To the Dalvin Cook question, I do think we're getting close to being able to. There's our window washer. Hey, I do think we're getting close to seeing Dalvin Cook getting an opportunity to be active for these games.
I hope so.
I hope he's got the quickness. I hope he's good enough.
I don't care. It's better than it can't be worse than what they already have.
They need to make a trade. That's what they need to do. They need to go find somebody who a team has a surplus of running backs, and they need to make a value trade.
Well, the Chiefs might be on the phone with them right now.
Yeah.
And San Fran. I mean, San Fran doesn't need it, but
right. San Fran's got their guy right now.
Let Trey Lance run the ball for you.
The Cowboys get absolutely worked against the Saints, and they lose 44-19. Small consolation. It was a scoregami. But
it's no consolation.
Okay. Tiny iota of a consolation.
If you're a fan of scoregami,
and I am,
then you're okay with it.
I mean, I'm not okay with it.
If you're a Cowboys fan, you're still nauseous.
I'm not okay with it. I'm just like a tiny bit. That's nice.
Furious.
Just one game. It's a long season, the longest season of all sports.
Mike, no, he's right. No, I think you're right about that. Like it is game 2 of the season. Not the longest season in sports.
Yeah,
it is
we'll
game.
Hear that at noon.
It's game 2 of this season, and you have a win and a loss.
Yes,
the season isn't over based on that. Like that's a reality. And I know somebody's, there goes Homer Corey. No, that's just the reality of football. Like you, every week you have a new opportunity to change it. But more than anything, you have to change your identity of preparation, your identity of physicality, your identity of what your mentality is when you go up against any opponent. You don't take them lightly by any means. You go in there and you stick it to them. The Cowboys aren't the stickers, though. The Cowboys are the ones that get stuck. That's just over the last, 5 years now, it's felt like any time they've gone up and against an opponent that's better, their identity is to just ball up and say, we're done for the day. We don't have an answer for you. And I don't like that part of it. So, yes, there is plenty of time in this season, and even Kevin, plenty of time to still go 4-1 in the first 5 games this over this stretch.
It's going to look significantly tougher, but you're right.
But if you show up with that kind of game plan and
attitude?
effort, I don't even want to call it effort. It didn't feel like effort. If you show up that way again, you're going to be out easy.
And I'm not disagreeing with this at all, but this just makes no sense to me as a strategy. From the 6-8-2, the defense had no idea how to deal with the motion before the snap. If there was motion, the defense lost their assignments. If that's the case, that is a shocking indictment of Mike Zimmer, because we talked all week about how much they had upped their not only play action, but their pre-snap motion. We talked about that again and again and again. And we're not on the team or in the league. So if we're able to notice that straight away, point it out, surely the defensive coordinator who's been in the NFL and has forgotten more about football than I'll ever know is all over this. But it did seem like that defense was completely lost at times.
It is another thing to add to it is new coordinator with team that you're like, okay, we kind of know the skill set of some of these players. What is the skill set of this coordinator? How are they going to play it? The film was one game against the Panthers. That's what you had to work off of. Other than going back and, I mean, hell, maybe Mike Zimmer should have known a little bit better considering that guy was on his team as a coordinator for him at one point. Maybe he should have known a little bit better. But that a little more growing and teaching your team throughout this season will be very helpful. But I don't think you have on the defensive line, I still don't think you have the body, the mentality, the ability to stop something like that.
Now, I don't think you're going to like either one of these texts, but I'm going to try to give you something that's nice. From the 214, at least something good came up yesterday. I used the Tolo Prize Picks code, bet $20 and won $500. And then from the 682, I was at the game thanks to y'all's ticket giveaway, but there was no home field advantage. How the hell does that happen? And I don't know who you want to compare this to or whatever, but I hope Shan and RJ ask Jerry tomorrow about all the fans from New Orleans that were in there, because it seems like that's something that would particularly bother him.
He said many times, Kevin, only 7% of fans have ever been in a stadium.
I've heard.
But he's also said many times he's happy that the NFL is popular. That's the reality is I don't care how the fans get there. I just want the fans to be able to get there. So if it was one of those, you're expecting him to be this is furious. My city against your city. Don't let anybody into my city's stadium. That's not Jerry Jones. And I would say it's probably not a lot of the owners who want to fill that stadium up.
So to your question, I understand the people who are saying, I think they are both teams. They're an unbelievably world-crushing team when they're front running. Mm-hmm. I get that. Yesterday kind of made me wonder if they're closer to the Saints game. Not to say that they're going to get destroyed all season, but I mean, are they closer to 8-9 than 10-7? Just my thought is a couple of things I worried about. You now have one offensive touchdown in the last 6 quarters. Now, I understand that the Browns game was over, and maybe that worked into the mindset. We talk about that all the time with the players, but look at the way things fell apart. The Cowboys were 6 of 13 on third down. That's fine. You're going to take that. 1 of 3 on fourth down. 0 for 3 scoring touchdowns in the red zone. And that's the part that is so freaking agitating to me. And then if I could use a weird Rangers analogy where sometimes we feel like they turn every pitcher they go up against into prime Clayton Kershaw, I felt like they made the Saints defense look like that yesterday with Demario Davis wrecking shop, Alontae Taylor smashing through the point of attack and getting into the backfield again and again and again. And Carl Granderson got a sack and a half, and they had 7 pressures. I felt like they made players that they're not bad players by any means, but I thought they were hey, these guys are all going to make the all-pro team, right?
Sometimes you can make things very simple to make it very easy. I'll give you the Rangers and the Cowboys, and I'll compare it, and it's going to be very simple. If you are a George Kirby, if you throw over 50% fastballs and you like executing at the top of the zone or just above the zone, the game's over. The Rangers cannot handle people that pitch that way. Yeah. It's over. What do the Rangers take advantage of offensively? Slider pitchers. Guys that love throwing the ball in the mid to high 80s with slider spin. Those are the guys they like hitting off of. So if you want to know when are the Rangers possibly going to have a good offensive game, usually it will be against that. Now, Cowboys, this is very simple, but it's obvious for, like Corey said, about 5 years now. If the team likes playing a little bit of smash mouth football, a little bit of bully football, and they get up by 2 scores early, the game's over.
Yeah.
It's the Cowboys do not they don't like coming from behind. So honestly, you want the team to defer. In a weird way, you want the team to defer so the Cowboys could possibly get up 3-0 or 7-0 to start the game, because then it becomes tougher to get up by 2 scores early. If that team gets the ball first and they score a touchdown, and then you score a field goal, and then they score another touchdown and they go up 14-3, the game's over. It almost doesn't matter who you're playing. It's a simple scouting report, and every team knows it. If you get up early 2 scores on the Dallas Cowboys and you've established a little bit of a bully mentality, they will quit.
Honestly, that's why I think we should never defer. Like, I know conventional football wisdom is you win the toss, you're going to defer. I always want us to take the ball because I'm like, man, that scoreboard. And I know scoreboard will affect many players and many teams.
Well, that 10-point swing, though, Kevin.
It seems, that surely worked out in this game. But it seems like it has a disproportionate effect on the Cowboys in terms of 7-0 can feel like you're down 17-0 and vice versa.
One of the ways that I would say to try and figure out the question that you were trying to answer here, after two consecutive blowouts, 1 win, 1 loss, which team is this Dallas Cowboys team? And welcome your 877-881-1053, your comments there and on the Twitch and YouTube.
YouTube's busy today.
It is busy. I love it. I will say, let's take what happened in both games. Kevin, you just pointed out the red zone miserable.
Yeah.
Cowboys seem to be in a very bad place there. And last year, early in the season, they were in a bad place there as well. It would seem you were saying, hold on, we saw these ways that Brandon Cooks was getting open in the red zone. Brought us in the post-game shows just pointing out. In Oxnard, we watched all these different ways to get him. Where was that in the red zone this week? The other thing, too, that is consistent in both of these games is your running backs are bad. You don't have a running game to hang your hat on. Your running backs are bad. Rico Dowdle, okay, you're a backup running back. Deuce Vaughn is starting to look like you're playing him all wrong. You have no clue how he's supposed to be played. And if you want to run Ezekiel Elliott to the edges and Deuce Vaughn in the middle, you have no clue what your team is. You have no clue what your personnel is capable of. Because Zeke can't get to the outside and turn that corner. And there's no cutback lane for him right now because you're dealing with a rookie offensive tackle and a rookie center. I'll be honest, I thought your offensive tackle wasn't great this week either.
Fair. Can Zeke be quick enough to cut it? If there is, can he cut into that cutback lane?
No, he can't. Look at Alvin Kamara yesterday. Alvin Kamara runs that perfectly. He knows exactly where his cutback is in this. This is Arian Foster had the same great successes that Alvin Kamara had because of the same running scheme. And Kamara yesterday, once he sees the cutback lane, boom, he hits it and he's gone. And Zeke can't do that if he has that kind of hole that opens up. But even getting around the corner to the edge, he's not going to be able to get it. So if you're saying to yourself, which we thought yesterday, Jerry told us before the game too, there's a difference between saying you're committed to the run and actually being committed to the run. The Cowboys decided yesterday, we're going to be committed to the run early in the game. And then they found themselves down 21-3. Like they found themselves down so quickly, they were like, oh crap, we got to figure out what to do here. But being committed to the run without a good running game is bad. That's bad for your entire team because it's not going to set up any of the things that the Cowboys could have done successfully yesterday. Kevin, I told you what the plan was. Yeah. You run the ball enough, those safeties are going to crash down. And they wanted to plan that way. They knew that plan would work. But then they were down by so much that they couldn't even, they were like, we can't even run the ball anymore. Safeties could stay back. And if you're going to play that kind of game, if you're going to say, okay, we're going to let the safeties play back, then you have to be perfectly clean. You can't have holding calls. You can't have those stupid mistakes that put you behind the chains. And that's what happened all day yesterday. The Cowboys were a Charlie Chaplin show of calamity.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah, 21 carries for 68 yards. It was rough. And even last week, I know you can look at it as a whole and be like, hey, 25 for 102. But when you were watching it, it didn't feel like a particularly captivating run game. I know CeeDee Lamb looked pretty solid, but
you're banging up against stuff.
It's rough. And now I hope that Dalvin Cook has Alvin Kamara left in him. You know what I'm saying? Like,
you know what?
Well, that's a weird way of saying it.
It is a weird way of saying it. But Mike, you texted me yesterday and you asked if Zeke was hurt, and I said,
honestly, because I didn't know, because I'm following it. They have the Seahawks and Patriots game on, which makes sense in Seattle, and so I'm following it on my phone play by play, and I'm like, did I miss something on Friday or Saturday?
And no, it was. Here's what I feel, because the way it looked, I feel like they were starting to prepare you for, it's going to be Dalvin Cook starting Ezekiel Elliott as your backup. He's going to be in on third downs to protect for pass situations, but that's where Ezekiel Elliott, like, that's all he can really do at this point. And Jerry kind of understands that too. The Cowboys understand that. But to have a running back that can actually hit the hole and go once he gets there, you're praying right now that it's Dalvin Cook. Otherwise, you're having to spend some of your assets for next year in the draft.
Do you think that they were intentionally lying to us, the Dallas Cowboy fan? Or do you think it only took them one game to go, oh, no, we were wrong on Zeke?
I think it's the first one. And the reason why is it's not fun to be like, hey, do you see how many first or second highest paid players in the league we either have or are going to have? So we're going to have to cut corners at other positions. Like, that's not a fun thing to say. But instead, you can be like, do you remember how great Ezekiel Elliott was? Whoo, he's back. And it was weird because we talked with Jerry last week and he said, don't judge him by his last year in New England. And I'm like, well, hold on. The year before that, you judged him and cut him.
Mm-hmm.
So what exactly is the reason? And so I think...
And then they benched him, at least to start the game.
I think they were lying. Yes, I absolutely do.
And this team is still desperately in need of a second playmaker. CeeDee Lamb is fantastic. You got to find a second playmaker if you want to be an explosive offense.
Because I keep thinking it could be, or I want it to be Cooks. It's not. Like, thus far, it's just not.
Nope.
Have at it, boys. What do you say? I mean, we do have a double bet payoff coming, so that is cool. Friday,
is it cool?
I think so for the Tolos. It is. It's
I'm pretty excited.
Definitely not.
Very excited for this double bet payoff Friday.
What the hell? You're up 10 with 10 minutes to go against a bad football team and you lose?
Yeah, at home.
Whew. That might be the only fan base that might be as frustrated as we are right now.
Yeah, and now it's a Sunday collision course at AT&T Stadium between two teams with a bad taste in their mouth.
Two desperate teams.
Yeah, you can say that 0-2 Ravens coming in after they just got bloodied up and
It's
embarrassed
a
at
must-win
the
game
end.
for them, man.
Yeah, it does. It does feel like an early season must-win game. Taking that L was extremely painful. I'm heartbroken today. Yesterday was as bad as a day could go, from the Cowboys to Survivor. Sucks.
It was just a terrible football weekend all the way around. Need to apologize to the Red Raider fans out there. Really thought North Texas had a chance going into Lubbock and putting up a good game. That was dead balls wrong. Texas Tech kicked our ass. Then I got to apologize to the New Orleans Saints. Thought you were fool's gold.
Yeah.
You're not. I did not respect the Saints' offensive line nor defensive line. They dominated this football game. So I apologize to both of those fan bases. I was wrong. And New Orleans, man, that's a tough team right there. I mean, I'm interested to see watching them the rest of the year. I mean, that could be a division champ and a team that if you're the Cowboys and you have any hope of making the postseason, you might have to see them again.
Yeah.
I don't know that it'll be any different, but I agree with what you said there, Gavin. I mean, to me, this felt a lot like, and I know Brad didn't agree in the postgame. We'll get to that in two guys, one booth, but
at 6.
Yeah,
6:20. Yeah.
But it felt like a lot of the L's that this team took last year against good football teams, whether it was San Francisco or Buffalo or the playoff game against Green Bay or you name it. But the second things start to go wrong, there's a snowball effect. And there's no kind of backbone or fight back, especially on the defensive side of the football when you're facing adversity to say, like, guys, can we shake out of this? Like, you just don't see the correction. And offensively, I understand fans that are, hey, you got a $60 million quarterback. I need touchdowns. I don't need field goals. I will say yesterday to me was more about the defense than the offense. They put up points their first 5 drives. But I understand you need to cash in for touchdowns. You need to be better in that area. You couldn't settle for field goals in that game. And I think that was very apparent once it was 14-3. Like, guys, you got to finish in the end zone. Field goals are doing you no good.
Yeah, I think the red zone offense needs to be examined here.
Yeah.
I think the fact that the Cowboys, what happened to them physically on defense with the Saints running game is something that we've examined and really talked about a bunch. But when you go back and you look at the All-22, there were things in the red zone. The Cowboys could have made this an interesting game.
Sure.
Could they have got a stop? Yeah, that was debatable.
No.
That was debatable. But the fact of the matter is that they missed some passes down in the red zone. The red zone execution wasn't very good. The quarterback missed a swing route. He missed a flat route. There's a couple of things that he, like I say, the wheel they could have thrown for a touchdown. He had some opportunities, and your defense was so bad that it really overshined the. I think I'm saying the right word.
Overshadowed.
Shadowed.
Outshined.
Yeah.
There you
Shadowed the
Team effort.
Yeah, how bad? Thank you. Appreciate it. Sometimes I don't get this right.
We've worked with you long enough. I kind of know where you're going.
It was a long day yesterday too, man. I bet you haven't slept.
No, I'm fine. The thing, but when you watch, there's some things that they absolutely could have done better in the red zone. And now I'm thinking about everybody's smart. Well, Cowboys' lack of a running game, this, that, and the other. I'm like, man, this red zone offense isn't very good. And I think it kind of, you look at what the play caller and what they're trying to do, the creativity. Yeah, there's there's things that you can do that they tried. They tried to flip. They tried the reverse. They ran the reverse, the same reverse that the Saints ran for a first down, and but they don't block the edge. So now it's a negative play, and it's just that goes to show you though they kind of feel like, oh, this we can maybe take advantage of this, and they don't. So it just not all about the defense here. The offense it had its moments where it wasn't very good or where it needed to be to win that game.
I love the 6A too. He says that the Cowboys said if it ain't broke, don't fix it with their game plan and got absolutely destroyed. Yeah, I think that's one of the frustrating things about watching this all go down is they did make an adjustment on defense, and I think if you give Mike Zimmer time, the end result's going to be pretty dang good.
They weren't very good yesterday.
No, they weren't.
They weren't good.
But that's always the case with Mike Zimmer in his first year.
Yeah,
we can see this coming.
Yeah, if you look at how they handled certain plays, and the Saints, you got to give them credit for the way that they were able to. I thought it was super creative the way that they made it appear that Micah Parsons was going to be singled, and then they brought like the wing all the way across at the snap.
Yeah,
not motion him across, but like wait till the snap's made and then run him across, like how running backs are in the backfield and then they look inside out to do blitz pickups. There were a couple different times where they had two tight ends, fullback and a tight end blocking on Micah, and then they could slide the line to where they needed to pick everything else up. It's almost like they said, we're not going to let Micah kill us in the passing game, and we're not going to let Tank hurt us in the running game. That's kind of what they identified.
It's a good strategy against the Cowboys
They identified
defense.
who your best players were in those particular situations, and there were a couple of times with the crack tosses, the ability. Like I said in the cross, if Dallas's linebackers are not making tackles, their run game is in trouble. It just they don't have anything else that can help them defend the run. But if they're going to allow blockers to get up on them as quickly as they did in that game,
it's game over.
Game over.
And Overshown's not helping that. That was a big Twitter chatter after the game, like the lack of snaps for DeMarvion Overshown. I was alarmed watching the game as well, thinking, where is he? But that's a player where if the defensive front isn't keeping your linebackers clean, which they weren't yesterday, Overshown's going to struggle when a lineman gets to the second level and gets on him to shed blocks. He's also a guy that is a converted safety at Texas that has that type of build. He's bigger than Marquise Bell. He certainly is, but he's also not your typical huge built linebacker. He is going to struggle to shed at times. You've got to keep him clean so he can use his speed and athleticism.
Yeah, they as a group though, they overran some plays too. They, if you look at the way that Kendricks play, there, like I say, the screen play, that was really on him. He's got the one-on-one coverage. He went too far to his right. The ball went back to his left. That's a huge play. Carson took a terrible angle to get to the ball.
Yeah.
Could have made the tackle in the open field. They didn't get that done. Just really all around pretty bad in what they needed to do with their fits and their finish.
If I'm the Cowboys today, I'm thinking, man, can we fix this? And, I think the defense is going to take some time. It'll have great games,
It will if the offense. It will if the offense is able to score right along with the other team.
See, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah,
that's
what you have to have.
This could have been a game where you go back and forth with them and it turns into a shootout.
Right.
And right now, this offense doesn't have the potential to do that, and they can't play ball control because it's 3 yards an attempt.
Right.
They have got to address this running game because, as you coined them so well last year after the Packers lost, they're front runners. And if they can't play with a lead, they look like one of the worst teams in the NFL.
They do.
We continue to see that. So how do you play with a lead? You do it like how the Saints did. You open up the third quarter and you hold the ball for a bleep load amount of time. And right now the Cowboys have no ability to do that. They need broken tackles where dudes just whiff on CeeDee Lamb, or penalties to move the ball down the field against anything resembling a really good defense, And other than the first half against Cleveland, it was clear they were dealing with rust, but snapped back into life, into form in the second half. And now this New Orleans team who's, just above average defensively? They looked really toothless. Dak missed a bunch of throws. I still have confidence this team is going to be in the playoff picture. I think this is more a result of what they do. They lay a massive egg once a month, usually against a physical team and a team that runs schemes that give them trouble. And both those things happened yesterday at the same time. So the Cowboys are right back to where they were last year. It's just a slightly different flavor. And how can you look at that running back situation and have any faith right now? Both those guys are stuck in quicksand. That's the last time I want to see Zeke or Deuce Vaughn for the rest of the year. That's depressing. Yeah. Jerry wants you to turn on the TV and get excited. That's why they never rebuild, because he wants How can you say that's happening with those running backs? Does he know they're that bad? Does he know they inspire meh as you're sitting there on the couch or just wanting to go to sleep? 29-year-old Alvin Kamara is coming into the game and looking like a blur. That's what speed looks like. And it's crazy. I think in football, all these guys are fast, but there's a huge difference in the levels of speed. Like on CeeDee Lamb's touchdown, there was a gentleman that came from the opposite side of the field absolutely flying, right? That's the difference in good playmaker speed and amazing speed. And the Cowboys are just punting on that at running back. I just, so why are they doing this? Why are they re-racking essentially the same thing? It has to come down to lack of awareness or just intentional engagement farming. This is how good we have to be relevant and to keep America talking about us. And we're not going to risk the future in order to try to win now. We got a report yesterday, the 49ers were trying to trade for Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
Already the best team in the NFC. They're like, oh, I know, let's add $35 million to our payroll right now.
Well, yeah, they did that with McCaffrey. Even though McCaffrey was hurt all the time and stuff, but that's worked out really, really well for them. Now he's hurt again, but to your point, they're going out and getting the best player if they can.
Yeah, we have a need at this position. Who's the absolute best player available? And the Cowboys continue to, pass on that idea and take a more sustainable year-to-year approach than, trying to build a great team. So, other than that, I think there's, a lot of ways we can talk about this. The Franklin Frankel injury text line is open for you. 940, I woke up and saw Kamara had 2 touchdowns and decided to not even watch the game. Most productive Sunday. Anybody else have that feeling yesterday, in the fourth quarter of, holy cow, I don't even want to watch any more of this. I'm good. There's no chance of winning and there's no entertainment value.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Why would you continue to sit through that? It was an absolute bludgeoning, and it was very similar to what you saw in that playoff game. It was an easy change the channel game, no question.
214, you get boat raced and you call the Saints defense average. Gavin, you're awful, dude. Well, that's what they've been.
Their offense has helped their defense a ton.
Yeah,
and I give them credit though for some of the red zone plays they made. They did a good job of when they had to be in position or get off a block or knock a ball down or, I think sometimes you kind of helped them along the way. Quarterback missed a couple of passes that could have been a difference making. And people say, well, he was running for his life. Well, sure. Still wasn't very good in the game yesterday. That was a big departure from where he was in week 1. But yeah, with the things with Dak, you're going to need him to make plays. And when the guys are open or they call a route, and it's up the field to Rico Dowdle on the wheel. They miss the pick, but they get the route. You got to throw the ball up the field. Mm-hmm. That guy's got to make that play. You can't miss a route inside to CeeDee Lamb on the goal line right there. You got to fit it right in there. You can't throw the ball to the outside. Is that on Lamb or is that on Prescott? Well, figure that out. That play needs to be hit in a game where you needed points. You needed to find ways to put pressure on the Saints, and you never could offensively.
Yeah, it's really rough. 410, bring up Dalvin Cook. Zeke was slow, and on that play when Dak almost got sacked.
It's like we're clinging to hope now. Dalvin Cook's your answer.
Yeah.
Dalvin Cook couldn't really get playing time on a bad Jets team last year. He was been available for a reason. I mean, hey, I'm hopeful. Maybe Dalvin Cook shows you a little something, but the odds are very unlikely that Dalvin Cook is fixing that issue.
No, he's been washed for a while. The idea that the Cowboys would go get Zeke and Dalvin Cook to solve their running back needs, that's the blinking red light position of get younger at every turn.
Yeah.
And that's what they decided to bring in here, and that's what happens when you're bringing in like August players.
Yeah.
Your defensive tackles are going to get pushed around and embarrassed because you're trying to solve an issue in August.
Well, they tried to draft a guy to play one technique, and it didn't work. I mean, if you look at it right now, I mean that's the problem is you're compounding problems is what you're having to do. If Mozzie Smith turns out to be the type of player that you think you drafted him for, well, then maybe you don't have to go out and get guys. But I personally feel like, the running game's a problem. I think the red zone offense is more of a problem. I just do.
That's been a problem for years.
That to me right now is, there's the way that the design of it, the routes. I mean, you look at Prescott and it's 5 vertical and it's like he gets sacked because he's trying to fit the ball inside to Tolbert when Cook's on the outside has got some space. I mean, it's throwing the ball to Span Ford on 4th down when he's double covered.
Like, what are we doing?
No one was really open on the play. I see what he's trying to do. He's trying to bring Span Ford over and see, but that's his first target in the NFL, and we're going to throw it to him. And the game was out of hand. I'm just telling you. But you're trying to kind of just work on and get any kind of little bit momentum. But the play caller, the execution, the quarterback, the receivers, the offensive line, take your pick.
Yeah.
Take your pick with the offense right now. I mean, just take your pick. And that's kind of where it's at. They just don't, but that red zone offense is more of an issue, and hopefully that won't be the case much more. But boy, we need to talk about that.
Absolutely. I'd love to have that chat. I feel like it's been something throughout Dak's career that's popped up in more than half the season since red zone efficiency.
Yeah.
Yesterday, he was talking and said, I'm thinking it'd be nice to be doing that on our side of the ball about the Saints offense. He says credit to the play caller over there and to that team for coming out and being ready on a noon start.
Maybe a little shot at the head coach there.
I wonder. I do think if you're a quarterback, you're paying attention to the things the other teams are running and how much hell that they're giving your defense, and thinking, "Wow, I wish we could do some of that." Would be one of the first things that would come to mind. I mean, how many more times do we have to see it? This has been going on for 8 years now, basically, this offensive revolution. And the Cowboys are still being like, yeah, look, they just, more than one way to skin a cat. But wow, those teams. I mean, Steve was talking about the Houston and San Francisco and Miami and all these teams at the top. How the bleep can you not say, let's get a coach that does this? Like Clint Kubiak should be at the top of your Rolodex right now. Just that card sitting there until whenever you can talk to them, right? What is that? After the wild card weekend?
Yeah.
They'll probably win a wild card game. You ask me, this New Orleans team actually is pretty good.
If I found out that Jerry was doing some tampering yesterday in that building, trying to go ahead and get ahead of the thing with old Kubiak, I'd be fine with it.
It's
causes of traffic, whatever.
It's not even that hard. Like when they ended up moving on and they wanted a new offensive coordinator, I sat here during a break and I went through who are the assistant coaches for those type of offenses. Bobby Slowick was on the list of guys that I pulled up. If I'm able to do this, just a radio host schmuck myself, why can't you do it there in the building?
Schmuck because you care. Because you care, Wolchuk. Because you want to work hard and to turn over every stone to make this football team better. Some people are just living the billionaire sports owner lifestyle.
I wish I didn't care as damn much because it still sucks.
You want to win. Jerry will tell you that.
I want to claw with my fingernails for that inch.
He is not in line with the fans.